Hey everyone, welcome back to Lady Empire. I have such an amazing guest here with me today, and this episode really hits home, quite literally, actually. I have, I'm just so starstruck by this young woman that I have here. We grew up together, we went to high school together, and now she is going to the Olympics. So Annie Kunz, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, well, thank you for that sweet intro. That was so cute. This is so fun for me. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I first just want to start off with you telling us a little bit about your childhood and your upbringing, and if this sort of affected your career path at all.
Yeah, like you said, we grew up together in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, outside of Denver. And I don't know, I feel like I look back at the way I grew up and like I'm still best friends with all the girls that we went to high school with and played Little League with. I was fortunate enough to just get on some really good teams growing up. Like our Little League team, I think we had like 72 goals and like 0 against us growing up. Like we were undefeated every year. The way I grew up, I was just fortunate enough to be on like amazing teams, and they're all still some of my like best friends and some of the best memories. Club soccer, we went to nationals and regionals pretty much every year. Especially, I think we made it to the final my going into college. And soccer at Wheat Ridge, I was fortunate enough to be on just like I grew up with all the girls I played with, and it was just so much fun. We won state for the first time in school history, and then won back to back the next year, and then made it to the finals our senior year, and ended up. I'm still bitter, but we lost to Valor. And then I went to A&M, and my class was the winningest class of school history. We went to the Final Four for the first time in soccer. And then I was going to A&M, who just came off the triple double in track. So they had won both men and women's national championships for 3 years in a row. So I have just been super fortunate to have grown up in just like amazing teams, amazing coaches. I'm still super close with my coaches from Wheat Ridge and my club coach and my soccer coaches from A&M and my track coaches. So yeah, I've just been super fortunate, and I am super blessed, and I couldn't honestly have asked for a better way to come into sports and grow up with it all. And coming from Wheat Ridge is such an amazing community, and even just like the last couple weeks, it's just people come out of the woodworks that you grew up with and from Wheat Ridge, and it's been amazing. There's been an outpour of love and support.
That's phenomenal. And I want to dive a little bit deeper into your time at Texas A&M. So you
Yeah.
mentioned a little bit that you played both soccer and track and field. So tell us about, being a dual sport collegiate athlete and how this sort of affected your college experience.
Yeah, I think especially nowadays, being a dual sport athlete is really rare. I think that especially growing up now, people or coaches and teams really force you to pick and to decide and in a really early age to pick one sport. And I was just stubborn. I was like, I'm going to do both. Everywhere that I went and looked at soccer, because soccer recruits earlier for college. They would recruit like around my sophomore year. I would find the schools that I was super interested in soccer, and then I would just go talk to the track coaches there and see if they were interested. And my top schools ended up being Virginia Tech, North Carolina, Florida State, and then Texas A&M. And I think through the recruiting process, you kind of learn who's serious about letting you do both or not. And Virginia Tech and A&M really, especially A&M, really made an effort to not only be like, yeah, we'll allow you to do this, because some schools were like, heck no, like we're going to pay for, like soccer's going to pay for you. Like you're not doing track type thing. Like North Carolina, I don't think was too crazy about it. But A&M really made an effort to like lay out what that would look like logistically. And we went and sat down and we had a meeting with both track and soccer coaches. We really came together and figured out how we would make it work. And I think that's what made me really decide to go to A&M. And A&M was coming off of the triple double, like I just mentioned, in track and field. And then there was a solid Sweet 16 team every year with the College Cup. So it was kind of the best of both worlds that I could find. And I fell in love with Aggieland when I went down there. I remember they were like the first school to send me an email or whatever, like whenever it's allowed. And they were like, howdy. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, where the hell is that? Like, what? Howdy? What does that even mean? Like, who says that? So it was super funny. And then I went down there and just fell in love with the culture, fell in love with Texas. It's such an SEC, like big football, big sports school, which I really loved because you're just so supported by the community and the school, and sports are just huge there. So it was a whole new experience, a whole new culture that I wasn't used to, but it was amazing.
That's so fun. So, what sort of made you decide to focus solely on track and field your senior year, right?
Yeah.
Obviously you were super gifted in both soccer and track. So, how did you really make that decision?
Well, we were going into our last, or it was my junior year of soccer, and our end of the season meetings, my coaches sat me down and were like, you've gone from in season to in season. You're in season in the fall, you're in season in the spring with track and field. And we think it would be amazing for you to redshirt your spring season this year of track, to get a spring with soccer and like really build the chemistry and get the technical training in the spring that you always miss, to go into our senior fall, because we knew we were going to have a really good team. They knew I could start and be a really big help. And they thought that the spring season would really be beneficial for me. And then for me, for school, I needed a fifth year anyway. So it just made sense. It really just made sense for me to redshirt that season and then have time for the first time in my life to just focus on track and field. Because in Colorado, I know in other states it's different, but in Colorado, soccer and track are in the same season. So I really trained for soccer because it's a team sport and you can't just like show up whenever you want with team sports. Whereas track and field is individual. So I would just do all of soccer practices with the girls, and then I would just go to track meets when I could. So so really in college was the first time I actually trained, like had normal practices for track, but it was still part-time. So it just made sense for me to kind of put all my eggs in one basket with track or with soccer in that spring into that fall. And that worked out great. We went to Final Four, for the first time in school history. And I was a starter all season, and it was great. And then I transitioned, and then I could put all my focus into track for the first time in my life. And that's really where it took off, where I finally got the fall foundational training that I never get. The technical training, the lifting program. And then that's when I qualified for the Olympic trials, and then broke the school record at the Olympic trials. And I think I was like 22nd going in, and then I finished 8th place. So it really just opened my eyes to like, shit, maybe I should be doing this, focusing more on track and field. And then I got recruited by my now coach there, to come out and move to the training center out here in Chula Vista, which is south of San Diego. And it's like a residence program, to train for the next Olympics. And it really just opened my eyes. I think I would have regretted it if I didn't at least try to just put 4 years of just my focus in track and field, and see what I could do. And it all just kind of worked out great.
That's awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about the transition from college to Olympic training.
Mm-hmm.
And so you mentioned how you found this new coach who sort of recruited you out of Texas A&M. So
Mm-hmm.
talk to us a little bit about the transition from college to Olympic training, and tell us about how that Olympic trials sort of motivated you to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, in the US, to go post collegiately and continue training in track and field is really hard. There's not a ton of support. There's not a ton of places, especially for the heptathlon, like for the multi-sport people to go. So if I didn't have the training center, I honestly don't know that I would have been able to continue, because my coach from A&M, who actually, so like for the first 6 months after the trials, I stayed at A&M. I actually was a part-time. I did like I was a co-host on a radio show, and then I would train in the afternoons with my college coach. And he ended up leaving A&M and had some personal stuff going on. So was kind of leaving the sport for a little bit. And I was kind of like, shit, like, I don't know what I'm going to do now. Like, I don't know where to go. There's no really like help post collegiately once you're out. So it's definitely hard, especially for kids that like can't continue on with their college coaches, to find a place to train. So I'm super, super fortunate that I was able to come out to the training center. And yeah, that transition's really different. In college, you're just so taken care of, like logistics, hotels, everything's paid for. Like, it's a big wake up call, I think, when you transition that first year out of college, because you don't realize how good you have it, especially at those big Division I schools, in the SEC where there's tons of money. So that in itself was different. The training center at least has a lot of help, more so than like other people that go post collegiately. But that within itself was huge, and it took me a little bit to transition. And then the training was just, my coach out here has a lot higher volume in training. And I'm not going to lie to you, the first like 6 months after I was done, I went on a bit of like a drinking bender and like wasn't taking it very seriously. Like, I'd moved out to California. I was like loving it out here. Like, my priorities were just not great. And then I was thrown into this high volume training with Erica Bogart, who's my training partner. And she has been like the best in the Hep for years and years. And I competed with her all through college. And so I was just trying to keep up with her, and I called my parents and my boyfriend crying like so many days. Like, what did I sign up for? This is so freaking hard. Like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. But yeah, so I mean, it was definitely, that first year was really hard, especially because I got injured as well. In like the second or third meet outdoor season, I got injured. I ruptured my plantar fascia. And so I was like out for like 5 or 6 months. So that was super hard, especially and that's, I think, when I realized so much, like how much college and collegiate athletics support you, and like in those scenarios, cause I was out rehabbing by myself all the time, and it was just really hard. Really, really hard moments for sure, transitioning from college to professional and post collegiate.
And I want to talk about another really challenging time, that is sort of the basis for how you got to where you are today, is kind of that big setback that we had with the COVID-19 pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to us a little bit about how this setback sort of affected your training program and some of the struggles that you went through during this time.
Gosh, that was, man, COVID was really, really hard for so many athletes at the beginning. I think for me, it was difficult because I was really hitting my stride. I had just come off of my best indoor season ever. I scored like 46.10, I think, in the pentathlon. So I had a huge PB, and then, and I won the national championships for indoors. And so I really was like getting into my groove and like feeling momentum when the shutdowns happened. And it was our 4th year. It was like our 4th year that we've been training, and it felt like the trials were around the corner. And so it was really, really hard. The center got shut down completely. So I had to go move in with my boyfriend in his place. And we like kind of were by a couple parks. So I would find parks and sneak in, because at that time they were like closing them off with like caution tape and stuff. So I was trying to just find little corners of parks that I could sneak onto. I remember there was like a basketball court that like backed up to some grass, and I just demolished this corner of this grass because I brought my shot put out, and there were just like all these divots, and I hit a tree a couple times. So I was just really trying to make do with what I could, because I had anxiety that I was going to lose that momentum that I had gained. And honestly, like my mental health really fell off. Like, I totally ended up realizing that I was depressed. I think I was in denial for a little bit, like, no, I'm good. And then I would be sleeping in till like 10 a.m. and not wanting to like get up and go and do anything. And you just felt like your purpose was kind of gone, with like, you're not bringing any money. Can't go to meets. I didn't have a job at the time. So it was just like my full day of just like, what am I doing with my life type thing. So really I struggled with that. I, ended up like it had been like probably 2 or 3 months once shutdowns happened. And I remember I was like sitting on my couch with my boyfriend, and I came in and I just started crying. And I was like, I think I'm depressed. Like, I don't know what's going on, because I've never struggled with that before. I've had like breakups and stuff where you get sad, but I've never been like life is, I'm just sad about life and I don't know what to do. So I really, really like broke down to him in that moment. And he said, yeah, like I think I've seen the signs, and let's get you some help. And so I started seeing a therapist, and I also started seeing a sports psychologist. And they were just the biggest blessings I could ask for. They got me out of that slump and really helped me in that time. And then I think it just became a switch in my perspective, where instead of thinking like, dang, this sucks, and like, I wish we didn't have the shutdowns, like COVID's the worst, I switched where I was like, this is like a huge blessing. Because I was a soccer player for so long, I was like, this is an extra year of me to play catch up and get better and catch up to those girls that I've been competing against for so long, that I wish I have like had the years of experience that they had. So then I would just like, once that shift happened in my perspective, I just like hit the ground running. I was finding hills. I was pushing myself in practice all by myself for the first time with no coach, and just sending him video and kind of getting like text feedback and stuff like that. And then once things started opening up a little bit more, my coach would drive up twice a week to San Clemente where I was staying. And we would go to the parks and throw jav or whatever we could that day. And like soccer fields and stuff. So it ended up being like probably the biggest blessing in all of it, because I found my sports psychologist, my therapist, who's amazing. She's like a life coach that I'm just super grateful for. And I wouldn't have found those things. And I don't think that I would have been as mentally strong this year if COVID hadn't have happened, and physically stronger too. And I think I just really realized through COVID how bad I really want this, because for the first time in your life, you're out there completely by yourself, pushing yourself. And it ended up being the best thing that could have happened to me.
That's amazing. And I want to talk more about the therapists and sports psychologists in a minute. But you also got a nutritionist, is that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm,
okay.
Yep.
So
I've worked with her since 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. So you look so athletic, so strong.
Thank
So
you.
tell us about your diet and your eating regime, especially with track and field athletes. I think a lot of us are misled on, the diet and the food
Mm-hmm.
intake. So tell us a little bit about that and what you're currently doing.
Yeah, gosh, I had struggled with that a lot. I think in track and field too, there's like a lot of pressure on girls to look a certain way and be fit. And so I think I struggled with that for a while, because I would think like, gosh, I think I'm eating healthy, but like, what am I doing wrong? I don't look like my training partners type thing. There's a lot of like comparison and stuff like that. And so another just crazy blessing that came out of all of this was when I was on vacation in Hawaii with my boyfriend and his family. And we, at our hotel, the bartender there, my boyfriend hit it off with him, and we ended up going with him the next day to like these waterfalls with his like sons. And we got to talking, and we're like, yeah, I run track and field. He's like, oh my gosh, my wife runs masters track and field. And she's a metabolic analyst. Like, I think she can really help you. You should get in touch with her. So just super small world. That's how I met my now metabolic analyst, nutritionist, Cynthia, and she just completely transformed my body. She's amazing at what she does. She basically can pinpoint like where you're carrying and storing your fat in your body and why. And then she helped me get on. I've never really taken supplements or protein shakes, even which looking back, I'm like, what was I thinking? Yeah. But so she got me like super regimented on like my supplements and protein, and I'm pretty much like paleo with what I eat. And I eat a ton of protein in the morning with like nuts and berries, and then just really high veggies, high protein in every meal. And then I have like colored or sweet potatoes, usually for my carbs. And that my energy was up. My body fat, my weight didn't change. Like I hope like, even if any athletes are listening to this, like, I just feel like you get too fixated on your weight and like trying to lose weight. And really like my body transformed, but my weight hasn't really changed much. It's just the percent of body fat that you're losing. you're gaining more muscle mass. And that's what happened for me. I gained a ton of muscle mass in changing the way that she ate or in eating the way that she taught me to. But yeah, it's pretty much just paleo and just super high protein, super high fat. But I don't feel like it's super restrictive. Like I don't feel like I'm like on this crazy diet that I can't follow. It's super easy to maintain, you know? And I think when you have a lot of potatoes and stuff, you don't feel like you feel satisfied. You don't feel like you're, you know, like missing out on anything.
Yeah.
And for me, I was like, oh, I can't have any carbs. Like that's the worst thing ever. And she's like, no. Like you need carbs. Like you can have all these potatoes, you can have berries, you can have, like grain-free chips and stuff like that. So, yeah, she's amazing. And I'm just so grateful for her. I feel like she finally got my body to like optimal performance and it's so fun. I just feel so strong. I'm super grateful for her.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just looking at your photos and videos, you look so strong and so healthy. And so I just
Thank
love to see
you.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's good feeling.
Yes. So talk to us a little bit about your therapist and your sports psychologist. What are some of the benefits that you've seen in working with them?
Oh my gosh, everything. I think it should be the law that people have to like go to therapy.
Yeah.
Like for some reason it has a stigma that it's like bad or you're messed up or whatever, but it's just good for you. Like you learn so much about yourself and what makes you tick and how you react to things. And I highly, highly, highly recommend it to everyone, especially athletes. I just think that your mental side of your sport gets neglected so much. Everyone's like, oh, it's all physical and talent. And it's like, actually your mental game is probably the most important part in my eyes. And I never really took time to focus on that and try to get better at that. So COVID really threw me into the fire.
Yeah.
made me focus on that. But yeah, I mean, basically my sports psychologist that I started working with, he's based out of Austin and he has a company called Enduro Mind and his name is Taylor Brown. And he and I have been working together since November, or no, maybe even earlier, the fall of this year and, or last year, sorry. And he is all about like mindfulness in sport and meditation. And I know it can sound a little like guru or whatever,
No,
but
amazing.
it's actually amazing. Yeah, it's so awesome. So the first 6 weeks I started working with him, it was just a foundation of like meditation and mindfulness and what it means and kind of just like showing me the ropes with mindfulness. And then after that, after those first 6 weeks, you kind of how it pertains to your sport and like what's showing up for you. So really he's helped me kind of first off, like, find a regimen of like meditation, like in the morning and at night. And that, which is awesome. It's one of those things that like, sometimes you like, oh, I need to do that. And then you do it and you're like, oh, that was so good for me. Like, I'm so glad I did that. But just getting to that point is hard sometimes because it's like very intentional. It's not like you're just meditating to fall asleep. It's like super intentional meditation. And then he just really, I mean, I think the thing he helped me with the most is acceptance. And because I think a lot of times, especially in sport, you're so caught up in resistance and like, oh, I wish that wouldn't have happened. Or you have anxieties of like an upcoming game or race, or like for me, it was the trials. Like I was just so much anxiety about this one meet that we've been working for 5 years. And he has really taught me acceptance and like releasing attachments and expectations, which is really hard work. Like, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes it was just he like challenged me in so many ways, with those things. And I finally feel like I comprehended it and was able to like fully take it in and put it into practice before trials. It was the first time where I kind of let go of all those expectations of like making the team and scoring what I wanted to score. Because I think I was gripping so tight to those things and it just can make you go crazy. I was trying to be perfect in everything. When you let go of those, it allows you to relax and just have fun, and be in the moment. And so, yeah, he has been a huge, huge blessing. He's taught me how to be present and in the moment and just take it one step at a time. And I think especially in the heptathlon, because there are so many different events, there's so many things that can go wrong or go good. But there's so many things that can happen, and there's 7 different events. So really learning how to be present in each one of those events so you can execute is what I'm just so grateful for, because I didn't have that at all before.
Yeah, and I could see where in the heptathlon it would be so difficult to stay so present with all those events spread out through that, I mean, that period of time. You know, it's so
Totally.
hard. And that's phenomenal. I love meditation. And it is really
Yeah.
hard to get into, like you said, but once you do it, you're like, wow, I just feel so refreshed and relaxed and just like a
Yeah.
positive energy and attitude.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's one of those things that it goes, I got with my sports psychologist to help me with my sport, but it's like, it's funneled into my relationship, my parents, it's just like a lifestyle change, honestly, where you just learn how to be present. Cause especially just like you said, like with the heptathlon, it's such a long 2 days. There's 7 different events. And in years past, like something would not go the way that I wanted it to or intended it to. And I would be so stuck in what had happened, and it would funnel into the next event. And then I'm just like emotional and caught up in what had happened. And those things are out of your control. So he has just been so great in pushing me to learn how to accept things as they come and be in the moment and be present and meditate. And it's been awesome.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
And so now I want to talk about the most exciting part of our interview. I'm so excited to hear about and to talk about. So first, let's start with the 2021 Olympic trials. You had 4 personal bests, which
Yeah,
is
so fun.
amazing. Phenomenal. Oh my
Thank
gosh. All of
you.
us, everyone that watched, I think was just in awe. You were so
Oh,
phenomenal. And
thank
so
you.
so I want to know, running that final event, what
Yeah.
was going through your mind before the start? I mean, I think all of us watching were like, what do these young women think about like lining up? Like, what is going through your mind during this time?
Man, well, we had 6 hours before that because it got postponed because of the crazy heat.
Right.
So I actually had like, which is a long amount of time. Like we usually have like an hour, maybe 2 hours before, but never 6.
Yeah.
So I actually like went home, and I called my sports psychologist, and I was like, what do I do with all this time? Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to just like sit in my thoughts about the 800, the like hardest event of the whole thing. And then like,
Yeah.
everything's like coming down to. So we decided I was just going to go back and like kind of start my day over. I would go back, I took like a 30-minute nap, I woke up, I did my meditation, I showered, I washed my uniform, and then like just got ready, made my dinner, did everything again. Which I think was good because it just kept me kind of like in my groove and busy and like my normal routine. I
Right.
wasn't just like sitting there at the track, like waiting and
Yeah.
thinking just in my thoughts. And then, I mean, I think going into that 800, normally like literally day 2 happens and everyone's thinking about the 800. We're just like, oh my God, that damn event. Like, it's
Yeah.
like your stomach starts hurting. Like it's
Yeah.
just the one event that no, even if you're good at it, it's so
It's,
hard. It's
yeah.
like, no one looks forward to it. But after javelin, I like when javelin notoriously is my weakest event. And I had a huge PR there. And so, I knew after javelin that I was on the team. And so that kind of released all the pressure where it was like, we're on the team. Like you did what you need to do. I've never set myself up that well going into the last event. So that was a really good feeling where I was, I think, more relaxed.
Yeah.
But then right before the 800, I knew I had to win by 0.2 seconds, or I knew I had to beat Kendall by 0.2 seconds in the 800 to win. And we both have a pretty close like PB, like we both run the 800 pretty similarly. So I was just thinking like, I mentally, I was just like, you're just going on a run. Like we had done a time trial like a couple weeks before, and I had ran a 2:15 in practice, or 2:15.5 in practice. So I was like, that's all you need. Like, you just gotta go, you're just going on a run. Like, it's no big deal. Like, this is just a training session. That's kind of what I was putting in my mind, just to kind of relax me. I did my breathing techniques that I've talked with my sports psychologist about. And it was really sweet actually when we walked out into our lanes. My sister, who is the Mountain Vista track coach, she's the 5A school head track coach, And so track is like her passion, and she was my coach in high school. And so the state championship was on Saturday. So she wasn't able to come for my first day of competing, but she was going to fly out and get there first thing in the morning on Sunday, and her flight got canceled. So I hadn't seen her in the stands yet in my first 2 events, and there wasn't as many people, so I could kind of keep track of like who was there. And then they postponed the 800. So if they wouldn't have postponed the 800, she would have missed the whole thing and been so sad. She said she was like crying in the airport.
Yeah.
But when I walked out to my lane, and there was a ton of people at that point, because it was like when all the other events were going on and we were going to be on TV and everything. And I heard her voice. I heard her yell, like, "Let's go, Annie." And I like looked up in the crowd and I saw my sister. And so that kind of too just brought me this like sense of peace, and just let me like be grateful she was there and smile. And so yeah, I was much more relaxed than I normally am going into that event, especially like with more pressure, I think, because I was like, oh, I could win this thing. So it was kind of surprising. It was very surreal, but I think all of that goes back to what Taylor has worked with me, and it's just being in the moment, and just not allowing your mind to go too far back or too far ahead of you, and just sticking to like executing and accepting whatever comes in the race, and then bring your attention back to your cues and your form. And yeah, so then I crossed the line, and like Kendall had been on my shoulder the whole race pretty much, because she just had to stay within that gap.
Right.
And so when I crossed the line, I had no idea how far behind she was from me. So I had no idea if like I did it or not. So we were all just waiting in anticipation, like at the board. And then when my name was at the top with 6703, I was like, what? Because I didn't pay attention to like what I was going to be scoring really. I was just like, okay, to win, I got to do this. So when I saw that 7, I was just like, I didn't know that number was something that I could attain. And so it just like, I think that's just when all the emotion took over, where it was just like all the years of like ups and downs, and times where I literally was like called my boyfriend crying, like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And then like all those moments like in the park at COVID, and it just like all hit me where I was like, it was worth it. Like I did it. It was worth it. And it was, yeah, I get chills thinking about it. It was just such a special moment I'll never forget. And to have my whole family there and the crowd who supported me over the years, it was so special, and I just couldn't have dreamt of a better ending. It was crazy.
Yeah. Oh, well, it was so amazing to watch you. We're all so excited. And I want to talk about the Olympics here soon. We will get there, people. I promise. I know we've talked so much, but I have so many questions for her. And I know a lot of people have been wondering what was written on your wrist that day, that you flashed to the camera. So tell us about that.
So earlier this year, right after Christmas, my like favorite person in the world is my Aunt Robbie, or was my Aunt Robbie. And my mom has kind of like a crazy childhood, and my Aunt Robbie was always kind of her mother figure. So she's like always been like our grandma. And she's been through like literal hell, like in her life. She was married to 3 husbands that all passed away while she was married to them. And then 2 of her 3 kids passed away in like freak accidents.
Oh my God.
So she's had so much loss. And if you guys would have met her, she's just like a bright light. She's so positive. She's just a woman of faith. And she's just so steady and level-headed. And she's the person that I would call if I was ever like going through anything hard, because she just gave the best advice. She's been through it all. And I asked her when we were in the hospital, I was able, because of COVID too, I was able to be the only one in the hospital with her for like 3 days over, like when I threw home for Thanksgiving and then again at Christmas. So I was able to spend like a crazy amount of time just one-on-one with her. And I recorded all the conversations we had. And at one point I asked her, I said, how the hell did you get through all of the loss and trials and tribulations and struggles in life? And she said she would wake up and talk to God and say the Bible verse, Philippians 4:13, which is, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And that just kind of stuck with me. It was what got her through those hard times. And she was actually at the Olympic trials in 2016. She was there supporting me. So I just wanted a piece of her with me that day. And we had a ring that we gave her, my boyfriend and I, for Christmas. And it had her initials with the Philippians 4:13. and she actually passed away in it. And we thought that they had lost it. We thought it fell off. And so after the Olympic trials, or that's what I wrote on my wrist. I wrote Philippines 413 and God is with me. And then when I got home, when I finally got to my family after I had won, the first thing my mom came up to me was hand me a piece of paper, and I opened it and it said, give this to Annie. And the ring was taped to the piece of paper. So I'm wearing it now and I haven't taken it off since. And I just started bawling, like right when I thought I had like cried it all out, I just started bawling all over again. Because it just means so much to me, and she was so special. So yeah, I have that ring now, and I wear it every day, and she is kind of where I kind of try to channel my strength from, and when I'm going through anything, and I wanted her with me through the trials.
Oh, well, I am so, so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
But that is so amazing that
she's with me.
Yeah,
she's always with me,
Yeah, that she's able to be there for you through all your events and through all your hard times in your life. So that's so special. I love that story.
I know, it's my favorite one to tell. So thank you for asking.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now to the juice of the whole interview. Let's talk about the Olympics upcoming. So you are now training with the USA Olympic team. So how is the team currently preparing and training? And you have mentioned both of these young ladies previously in the interview. How is it training alongside Erica Bogart and Kendall Williams? How's the whole dynamic with the USA Olympic team?
It's so fun. It's so crazy. I think after the trials, because they always say like the trials is the hardest meet, because making the team is the hardest. Even like 2-time Olympians aren't even as nervous at the Olympics as they are for the trials, just because of the competition in the US. So when that was over, it just felt like I was like, oh, I did it, I'm done. And then they take us into team processing, and you open these doors, and there's like this huge room of all the USA uniforms that you get to try on, and they were playing music, and it was like a candy shop for us. So that's when I realized like, oh my God, I'm representing the US at the Olympics. Like, holy shit. Like, it's just so crazy. So yeah, it's been basically, we went through team processing. We got all uniforms that night and everything that we have to take home. And then it's pretty much just back to normal. Like, they don't send us to a training facility where like all the Olympic track and field people are going to train together or anything like that. We pretty much, because of COVID, are all leaving at like kind of different times, just depending on when you compete. So up until then, like, we're like, Kendall trains out in Georgia with her coach, and then Erica and I are still at the center, and we're kind of just back to normal here. We weren't put in like a bubble or anything like that. So we're just training like normal until the 26th. I leave on the 26th and then compete on the 4th and 5th. And then we leave on the 7th. So it's kind of like a lot shorter than normally would be. Like, you normally would be there for like a month when you go to the Olympics, but because of Japan, and they like pretty much are like, screw you guys, we don't want you here. It's a lot shorter. They're only allowing you in like a week before you compete, and then you have to leave within 48 hours of your competition being over. So I'm missing opening and closing ceremonies, which is a big bummer, but other than that, at least we get to go and compete still, and it didn't get canceled like we thought it would. So, but yeah, that's kind of life right now. Just training and getting ready for the 26th to leave.
That's awesome. So are they still calling it Tokyo 2020 Olympics? Is it 2021? I feel like
they are calling it 2020 Olympics. Okay. It's all very confusing. We're like, it's 2021, but it's 2020 Olympics. So it is 2020 Olympics, and that was like on our medals, trials, and everything. So I think that's still
Okay. So obviously there are so many rules with COVID, and all of the athletes competing in these Olympic Games aren't allowed to have their families there with them. So how do you think that this is going to affect you and your performance, not having them there supporting you?
Well, honestly, I've been preparing for that for like the last few months. I think when there started being talks of fans not being there and stuff, my boyfriend and I were like, let's just expect that you're going to be there completely alone. Like, no one's going to be there with you, and anything more than that is a bonus. So I think I've tried to be in that mindset for a while. So it really wasn't shocking to me when that happened. I think not having fans is going to be different. I don't know how that atmosphere will, I mean, obviously the whole world is still watching, but there's something about a crowd that you just feed off of the energy. Like when you're running down the home stretch, like at the trials, I was like, do it for the people
Yeah.
cheer. Like there's an energy that you're feeding off of. So I think that will be different and kind of a bummer. But I think you just, if you allow it to get to you, then it will. But at the end of the day, we're going to compete at the Olympics and we still get to do that. It's just going to look a little bit differently. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just excited. I think the trials really opened my eyes and motivated me a lot to train really hard these next few weeks to go compete. And I think that's a blessing. And I'm just excited that I mean, it's kind of crazy. I'm like, of course the Olympic, my roommate and I were talking about, like, of course the Olympics we've qualified for is like the weirdest Olympics
Yeah.
ever. Like,
Yeah.
like the weirdest one, like most historic Olympics, like
That would
that
be
we could
us.
have imagined. So it also
Yeah.
motivates you, I think, for the next Olympics in Paris. But yeah, I mean, I'm still excited. It's the Olympics, and I'm gonna go enjoy it as much as I can and soak it in. And yeah, that's all I can
Abs-
do.
Absolutely. Um, so how do you think the level of competition is going to change now competing against other countries? Will it sort of be
Mm-hmm.
heightened? Is it going to be similar to the trials?
Mm-hmm.
How do you think the competition will be?
I mean, I think that goes like talking about just being a weird Olympics. It's like you don't really know what anyone else is because it was a global pandemic. Like
Right.
people in Italy, did they have their resources? Like, did they have their facilities in Belgium or wherever? Austria, the people that we're going to be competing against. So I think it's up in the air, which is really crazy because it's just been such a weird year and a half where we don't know what anyone's been able to do or the access they've had to their facilities or coaching or whatever. So
Right.
um, I think in that aspect, it's definitely kind of up in the air. But at the same time, everyone got another year to get better. So everyone could come in really just doing amazing.
Yeah,
Like,
guns
you don't
blazing.
know. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
kind of up in the air. But I think the trials was super fun because I'm just really proud that we have three Americans that put up such big scores. We haven't ever had top three finishes that high. So that was really cool. And I think it's a confidence booster for us three going into the Olympics, knowing that we were capable of that and kind of bringing more attention to the sport too, with having three people that have scored that high and going in. So I think the trials just prepared us for the level of competition that we're going to be against, and super, super excited.
That's awesome. So, you've sort of talked about how you felt like you were in like a USA candy store picking
Yeah.
out the uniforms and the music, and it was just so
Yeah.
surreal. So,
Mhm.
how does it feel to now represent the USA during competition? I mean, I know everyone in Colorado is so supportive, but now
Oh,
it's an entire country that
yeah.
you're representing. So, how does that feel?
Gosh, it feels so crazy. It's just surreal. I'm like, I grew up in Wheat Ridge, Colorado. It's like we were like the Wheat Ridge farmers in
Yeah.
high school. It's like, what? Now I'm like representing the US. Like I was a farmer. Like what?
Yeah.
So it's just, I mean, I'm just so grateful. Like it's just an opportunity that not many people get to do, and I'm not going to take it for granted. I also think after just so much turmoil in the country the last like year and a half to 2 years, and I think the Olympics is something so special because it brings so many countries together and we all can kind of forget anything that's going on in the world and come together for one thing and just have fun and smile. And so I think that's really special that I'm really looking forward to, and being able to represent the USA as best as I can, and Aggies back at A&M, and hopefully just make them proud. I don't know. It's crazy.
Oh, well, you've already made everyone so proud,
Thank
even
you.
going to the Olympics. So,
Thank you so
um,
much.
I have one final question. What do you hope to accomplish at the 2020 Tokyo Olympic Games?
Oh man. I going into the trials, I didn't really have many expectations. I like we talked about earlier, like kind of let go of all those expectations, and I really committed to just being present and enjoying the experience. And I think that's the biggest lesson I learned in the trials, because when I did that, I was able to perform and execute and have fun. And I didn't want to look back on the experience and be like, gosh, I was so caught up in my own thoughts and head and overthinking that I didn't enjoy the moment I was in, which is like so special. And now going to the Olympics, it's even more special. I want to do the same thing. So I don't have any like harsh expectations, or I obviously have goals and stuff, but I think my biggest goal is to go enjoy it and have fun. And just take it one event at a time, and just try to execute to the best of my ability, because I know if I do that, good things will happen. So that's kind of my goal going in. And, I'm just so excited. I can't believe it. Like, it's just so crazy.
We're so excited to watch you. And I have to finish with a fun fact about you that I do with all of my guests.
Yes.
And so my fun fact for you is, what has been your most memorable competition and why?
Oh man. I mean, the trials. I think the trials was the most memorable I'll ever. I mean, it was 5 years all coming down to one moment, and I couldn't have dreamt of a better moment. I mean, I think I even got interviewed in high school, by like, what was his name? Like Vic Lombardi. I think he works for a news station out there. Yeah. And I remember he asked me like, do you want to qualify for the Olympics in soccer or track? And I remember being like, I want to do both. And so now to like look back even on that and be like, I actually did that. It's so crazy. Like, I've dreamt about becoming an Olympian forever. And so for literally my dream to come true at that meet, I think is more memorable than I could have ever asked for. And for my whole family to be able to be there, especially through a year of COVID, where like they couldn't really watch me compete all year. And they've been the ones that have supported me literally since I could walk in sports. And they've flown across the world for me. They flew to Doha in 2019 to support me at World Championships. And so for all of them to be there, my best friend Bella, who we went to high school with, her and her mom Susan were there. My boyfriend was there, his family. It was just so, so special. And I'm so glad I was able to share that moment with them. So definitely the Olympic trials.
I figured it would be, but I was like, maybe she has some other idea. I don't know. So I had to ask.
No, for
sure. So Annie, where can we find you on social media? Where can we look for what you're doing and your training?
Yeah, I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram and Twitter. Annie_Kunz7 is my Instagram. And then just Annie_Kunz is my Twitter. I was off of Twitter for a while, but I'm back. And I'll let you know my thoughts.
Yeah, it gets a little crazy.
It can get a little crazy. Yeah. But yes, so those are my social media channels that I'm on. And did you ask me something else? I forgot.
No.
Okay.
That was perfect. So, Annie, we are so excited to watch you compete, to watch you represent not only Colorado, but the United States of America. I absolutely cannot wait. So thank you so much for sharing.
You're so sweet. You've always been so bubbly and so great. So this is so fun to be able to chat with you and someone I know and love. So thank you for having me on. This is so cool.
Oh, thank you so much. And good luck. We're all rooting for you.
Thank you so much.